Welcome to the Open Journal Hour on Pacifica's KPFT 90.1 in Houston, Texas. I'm Emmett Abati with another edition of On the Real Side. Because today, on the real side, we will be talking about getting away with murder. The Atlanta child murders that officially started in 1979 and officially ended with the arrest of Wayne Williams in 1981. That's the official political, police, and media story. But our guests, Chet Dettlinger and Jeff Pugh, co-authors of the 1983 Pulitzer Prize-nominated book The List, wrote that what ended with the arrest of Wayne Williams was adding names, 22 in all, to the list, and the media reporting of those new murders. This is an important story that won't, and I might add, shouldn't go away. So when the newly elected chief of police of Atlanta DeKalb County, Georgia, where a number of bodies were found, announced that on the 11th of May, 2005, that he was reopening 5 of the murder cases, I dusted off my copy of the list and decided that the listeners of KPFT and on the World Wide Web needed to know more about this once very widely reported but little understood story of a reign of terror that gripped at the throat of the city too busy to hate. So call a friend. Right now, go ahead, call them, and tell them to listen up and tune in to 90.1 FM and 89.5 FM or on the World Wide Web at www.kpft.org for the real story on the real side. We have on the line and welcome to On the Real Side, Chet Dettlinger and Jeff Pugh, co-authors of the 1983 Pulitzer Prize-nominated book, The List. Jeff Pugh was assigned to cover the murder cases as a veteran staff reporter for the LA Times Atlanta Bureau. And we are most honored to have with us Miss Catherine Leach, the mother of 13-year-old Curtis Walker, whose unsolved case was reopened by the chief. Later in the broadcast, hopefully, we will be joined by Chief Louis Graham. Welcome, everyone.
Yeah, hello, Emmett.
How you doing?
Good, good.
Catherine?
Yes.
How you doing?
Fine.
Okay, and Chet?
Well, I'm doing fine. I think Jeff probably won't tell you, but his name is Proof. P-R-U-G.
Okay, thank you very much.
Also, I'll correct you, Emmett. It's Dettlinger. Dettlinger.
Dettlinger. All right.
Yeah.
Thank you all, everyone.
Right. That's all right.
Okay. So let us start with you, Chet. You had the distinction of arresting but not criminalizing a very young Cassius Clay.
That's correct.
Tell us briefly about that as you and Jeff set the stage for what later would become known as the Atlanta child murders and their relationship and importance to the list.
Well, I was a young cop, about 21, 22 years old in Louisville, Kentucky. I was riding by myself one day, and I saw this decrepit-looking motorcycle. No fenders, no hood, no nothing, just 2 wheels and a motor going down Eastern Parkway in Louisville with 2 black kids on it. And I stopped it. It had no license, had no lights. And of all things, the driver was none other than Cassius Clay. The rider was his brother Rudy. I knew Cassius pretty well because his trainer or his manager, Joe Martin, was a Louisville policeman. And this was before the Golden Gloves. And it seems that I took Rudy home, and I took Cassius down to police headquarters, where I called Joe Martin, had him meet us there, turned Cassius over to him, so he wasn't officially charged with anything. But the interesting thing about that was that in Louisville, when you drive from where I was to police headquarters, it was a street by the name of Walnut Street. Today, that name of that street is Muhammad Ali Boulevard.
Isn't that something?
Here I was. There's not even an alley named in Louisville, Kentucky for me, but I took Cassius Clay down to Muhammad Ali Boulevard to the jail.
Okay, let's bring us up to what was going on in Atlanta.
Want to take it, Jeff?
Yeah, I can do that. There have been a couple major developments within the last 30 or so days, Emmett. The first development you've touched on already with Chief Graham reopening at least 5 of the cases in DeKalb County. He's also added another one in which the boy Christopher Richardson disappeared from DeKalb County, but he was found, I believe, in Fulton County. Technically, he's a Fulton County case, but But anyway,
Jeff, if you could just take a moment, and there are many people who weren't even alive when this happened.
Sure.
And a number of people who didn't really understand or know that much, or perhaps it didn't even come to their attention. So could you just give a short synopsis?
Sure, just a capsule description.
Yeah, just bring our audience up to date.
In the late 70s and early 80s, Atlanta was besieged, Metro Atlanta, I should say, was besieged by a string of unsolved murders. The authorities initially were reluctant to recognize that Atlanta even had a problem. It wasn't until some of the parents marched on City Hall contending that the mayor and the police chief and the police department and so on were...
And the mayor then was...
The mayor then was Maynard Jackson.
And the chief of police?
The public safety commissioner was Lee Brown. And he was in charge of both police and fire. They had a changeover in government back in '74. But anyway, the parents contended that they felt that the authorities were giving these cases their undivided apathy. And it wasn't until a few months later, as more and more bodies continued to turn up, that Chet and some of his comrades on the Atlanta PD basically offered their help, and they were rebuffed. So they called their own news conference with the parents and said they were going to assist the parents in investigating these murders. Well, right then, of course, Lee Brown announced they're forming this task force, and from there on, the Atlanta authorities, through massive amounts of manpower, police power, and huge amounts of money, $4.6 million of it from the federal government, from the Reagan administration, at these cases, yet the murder toll just climbed relentlessly. So you couldn't go anywhere in the world, Emmett, without hearing about these cases. You could go to Paris or London or Milan or Tokyo, and these murder cases were capturing the attention of the world. So it wasn't until, I guess, nearly 2 years after we think this started. Of course, nobody really knows, but it wasn't until spring of 1981 when the authorities arrested a young man, a native son of Atlanta, a native son of Black Atlanta, I should say, too, Wayne Williams. Who
was a very prominent, not prominent, but he was an up-and-coming and knew a lot of people, and a lot of people thought very highly of him. Yeah,
Wayne was he was known among certain people in the Atlanta establishment. I mean, he wasn't a total stranger. I would say he wasn't widely known among the masses in Atlanta, but certainly there were a number of people within the black community there in Atlanta who knew him, and politicians and local leaders and so on. And anyway, Wayne was eventually, and we'll get into some of the details, but Wayne was eventually tried and convicted of 2 murders, neither of them children's murders, Emmett. That's one of the...
It was a 22-year-old and a 27, was it?
Yeah, 27-year-old Nathaniel Cater and 21-year-old Jimmy Ray Payne. They were both, young adult felons. And after the trial, after he was convicted of those 2 murders, the authorities then slapped 22 more deaths, all but 4 of them children.
Jeff, they might be interested in knowing that Andrew Young had some involvement with Wayne.
Yes, please. Yes, please tell us briefly about Andrew Young's involvement.
Well, when Wayne was about 14 years old, he and a couple of buddies in his neighborhood put a homemade radio station on the air in their neighborhood. And Wayne occasionally had, politicians come by and campaign on his airwaves there. The range of the listening range of the station was only a few blocks, but Andrew Young came in and was interviewed by Wayne, and then even before that, when Wayne was in middle school, he was elected president of the student body, the student council president of Anderson Park Middle School. And guess who showed up to be the officer, the person installing Wayne as the student council president? It was none other than Andrew Young.
Okay.
And so, of course, later on, it was Andrew Young who became mayor at the start of Wayne Williams' trial. And Andrew Young basically took the party line that justice was indeed served, and even went on ABC Nightline at one point to attack Chet and me and our book, The List, while conceding in the same broadcast that he had not read the book.
Okay, let me ask Chet. Chet, you did a map. Can you give us some, an overview of the map and the significance of the map? Because I lived in that neighborhood that you drew the map, that included that map. And then I'd like to bring Miss Leach in on the conversation.
I had been to Atlanta Police Headquarters, and I had seen their map. And the problem with their map is the pinheads they were using were so large that they would cover entire expressways. So that in one instance, for example, they had Eric Middlebrook's death occurring on the wrong side of I-20, which is by car about 2 miles away from where it actually occurred. So I looked at the case. I thought, there's got to be something in this thing. There's got to be some tie among these people. So I started mapping 3 locations. Police normally map 1. They map where bodies are found or where remains are found. I started mapping where the victims lived, where they were last reported seen, which was the weakest of the 3, and where their bodies were found or their remains recovered. And to my amazement, I found out that all these things were happening on the same, I think it was 12 streets. And, when you ride it, when you ride those 12 streets, it gives you a sense, a feeling that these people must know each other. So anyway, make a long story short, I one evening I had 2 Atlanta police officers came by the house and sent Mike Edwards had sent them by, and they wanted to take the tour of death. That's what got called in the newspaper here. And so I took them out and we drove around this map. We got to this one intersection right at the West Point MARTA station there, and one of the police officers, I tell him, you turn left here and you go down about 2 blocks and you take a quick right, and that's where this body was. He said, wait a minute, he says, I can take you there directly. Of course, he rode the beat. So he zaps across the street, takes a left on the first street, and hell, in a minute, we were there. And in that minute, we had passed a house, and the house we passed was Wayne Williams' house. And I thought, well, that, later on, I thought, that's amazing. If they're right, maybe the map should have been paid more attention to. But one of the things that I did find from investigating various things about the map was that there was one victim, Patrick Rogers, who knew 19 of these other victims. So there were connections among the victims. I don't know about among the killings, but there were connections among the victims. But
at the same time, the officials and the police and a multi-million-dollar funded task force was saying repeatedly that there was no connection, that there was no pattern, et cetera, et cetera. Is that correct?
That's correct, yeah.
I mean, how's that possible?
Well, it didn't just happen in Atlanta. I had I don't know what you call it, privilege or what, but in 2003, I spent the year on the West Coast on the defense team of the Green River murderer, Gary Ridgway. And, I found the same things going on there. It was deja vu. The police were doing the same things. People were asking the same questions. Newspapers were making the same comment. So it happens everywhere, not just there. So
one of the things that people need to know about you, Chet, is that you have a stellar police background. You're what they would call a cop's cop. And yet, you find yourself criticizing obvious errors in procedure and in results that have you on the other side of being part of the bandwagon that says the police are doing a fantastic job and the laws are keeping them from doing even a better job. But you're telling me, and I want the audience to understand, and correct me if I'm wrong, that some of the most elementary principles of just common sense are overlooked, maybe often. I won't say routinely, but often.
Oh, yeah, I'd say often, but you have to understand that policing is not designed to do one thing. It's not designed to prevent any crimes.
Now, wait a minute, wait, hold it, wait a minute, Chet, say that again. Because you're just messing up the public relations of hundreds of millions of dollars and cop movies and everything else that gives the impression that police and police presence and policing, reduces crime. So please say that again.
It does not. Policing is not designed to prevent crimes. policing is designed perhaps to move them from would-be victim to would-be victim, from place to place, from time to time, but it cannot prevent them because it's not designed to prevent them.
Okay. Now, I'd like to ask Miss Leach if she would be kind enough, and again, we're honored to have you join us, and I'd like to have you just share what your hopes are in now that your son's case has been reopened.
Well, I'm hoping that this thing can come to an end. I'm hoping that this case will be solved and justice will be done.
Well, it's hard to imagine what you are experiencing, having to relive what happened, several decades ago.
Yeah, that's about 23 to 25 years of hell.
And how much support and monies did you receive from the millions and millions of dollars that poured in from all over the world?
None.
Now, come on. Now you're telling me that Jeff and Chet, I want you to verify this, that multiple millions of dollars went in to Atlanta to be able to assist the parents of the victims and to help facilitate whatever they needed to bring this terror to an end. Is that?
No, we got hell. That's what we got. We got hell. We didn't receive nothing but hell. That's what we got.
Would you
we didn't receive anything?
Would you say something more about how did that hell look like? Because I'm not clear as to what you're.
When you said that multiple millions of dollars came to come in to do something for the parents and things like that. Well, I ain't seen nothing done but hell. I mean about hell, was nothing done for me. I'm speaking for myself.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, and we will come back to you again. But we're very fortunate to have joining on the real side, Chief Graham.
Yes, sir.
Are you on?
How you doing?
Thank you very much, sir, for rearranging your schedule and pushing to get here and to be part of the conversation.
You're quite welcome.
Chief Graham, would you kind of share with us as to what possessed you? Because I might tell our audience that you were one of the investigators during the investigation period of the Atlanta child murders, and you have become the chief of police, and DeKalb County is all part. In fact, you wouldn't even know that you were moving from Atlanta to DeKalb County.
That's right.
And you became chief when?
I became chief of police here November the 1st, 2005. 2004, I'm sorry.
2004. And one of the first acts that you have done in your capacity of chief that really has stirred up a hornet's nest has been?
Well, I don't necessarily espouse to the position that I've stirred up a hornet's nest. That all depends on who you're talking to. I don't think I've stirred up a hornet's nest, and what I've done is what I need to do in my capacity as chief of police, look at old cases that have not been solved, and that's what I did.
Mm-hmm.
So if someone or anyone attributes that to stirring up a hornet's nest, the first thing I will do to them is apologize, but let you know that is not the purpose here. The purpose is my duty, my responsibility as chief of police in DeKalb County is to look at all cases, and it was my decision to look at these 5 cases along with other unsolved cases.
Understood, sir. So I wasn't trying to be theatrical or dramatic, but I read some comments on the internet that was very unflattering and racist, to be in fact, and it reminded me of the kind of hostility that was directed toward the Dream Team when O.J. Simpson, the so-called trial of the century, that there are many people who really don't care whether or not Wayne Williams did or did not do it. They just don't want to have this thing revisited. And they claim that you're wasting taxpayer money and the monies would be better spent someplace else.
Well, my response to those people who say those things, number one, that I'm wasting taxpayers' money, I really would ask them to show me any proof of where taxpayers' money is being raised. I haven't hired any additional police officers. These are police officers that are currently with the department. I haven't hired any new additional staff. It is my duty and responsibility from time to time to redirect staff, and that's what I did. These people were already here, so I defy anybody to tell me or show me where I'm wasting taxpayers' money. That is ridiculous within itself.
Sir, let me ask you how beneficial, if at all, the work that Chet and Jeff have done to kind of give you some kind of information base or maybe some inspiration or maybe, some leads even, because the book is very, very specific.
Well, I know Chet Detlinger and, I'm familiar with these people, but I'm not looking to them for any guidance from this stuff. I mean, I'm looking at the evidence and let it lead us where it may. This has nothing to do with any book, any article. We are simply opening these cases, and we're simply going to follow the evidence where it leads us. And it has nothing to do with Chet or anybody else.
You have been quoted as saying, "I have never believed that he did anything." Is that a correct quote?
That is a very, very correct quote. That's correct.
And the former prosecutor, Joseph Drolet, if I'm pronouncing his name correctly.
Joseph Drolet.
Drolet, okay, stated that the murder stopped and there has been nothing since.
Well, let me just kind of answer that in this way. It's a very good possibility that they might have. It also is a very good possibility that they have not. But I think that what we have to do is, if we determine that Wayne Williams didn't do it, then the question is...
Who did?
Who did, and where were they at the time? You see, so I'm not going to, I know Joe Drolet, and we've been friends for a long time, but, he was the prosecutor, remember that, and I respect his position, but, I don't look for anyone on that side of the fence to respect my position, because if I am right, then everything that they have done goes up in smoke.
And that may be of concern to a lot of people.
But, I don't know why that should be of concern to anybody. I mean, first of all, you look around and you see after 40 years, the FBI is unearthing Emmett Till, who was killed in Mississippi. Now, I don't know who would have any problem with that. The BTK killer, they spent 20 years on him. Deep Throat. I mean, what about these investigations that frighten people? There should be nothing. They should be encouraging, an investigation. Those who believe the same way I do.
Well, I'm sure everyone on this call would clearly agree with what you've just said, but you were well aware of the special task force, and people built their careers and reputations and probably some of them got really rich because Miss Leach hasn't received any money. And I think, Jeff, you had indicated, and also Chet in the book, that, there's a real question of where the money went because nobody got any money.
Well, I think, Emmett, it's important to point out that there certainly were federal dollars, $4.6 million, as documented in the George Bush Library down in Texas, in federal dollars that came to the investigation.
How many dollars?
$4.6 million.
$4.6 million.
Right.
Okay, got it.
And Vice President Bush, George Bush then, was the vice president. He was appointed by President Reagan to coordinate the local investigation and the federal investigation into these cases. And I think, first of all, I want to say I think what Louis Graham has done is a wonderful thing in the sense that he is basically, it's like opening the windows and allowing gales of fresh air into Metro Atlanta, where this stench has lasted too long. This stench of injustice, frankly, is lasted
and you're right. You're absolutely right. That's what I'm doing. I happen to be one of several people, maybe millions, I don't know. But it doesn't really matter who happens to believe that Wayne Williams is innocent. Now, when you talk to people, and I'm sure that you probably have, here's what you will hear. And this is the irony of the whole situation. You will hear people say, well, I don't think he did all of them, but I think he did some of them. Okay, so let's give you that argument. I don't think he did all of them, but I think he did some of them. Well, now, in your belief, those he didn't do, so what do you do with those cases? You just let them rot on the vine? You see the point I'm trying to make?
Excellent point.
I have talked to very few people, and even some people from the prosecutorial team, and they will tell you, well, I don't think he did them all. Well, what about those he didn't do? I'm saying unequivocally, I don't think he did any of them. And so, therefore, I am in the process of trying to open these cases up. And I don't have any golden bullet here to indicate that I'm going to come to a successful conclusion. I don't have that. But I'm going to tell you that when we look at these cases, we will know where the facts lie, and I can assure you that is happening as we speak.
Chief, since you are on the line and Ms. Leach is here, Ms. Leach, this is an opportunity that you might want to say something to Chief Graham, and please do so if you would like to. If not, that's perfectly all right too.
Well, I just want to say to Chief Graham, he know how I feel about this. He on top, and I want him to know that I'm praying for him, and that whatever he's doing, it ain't gonna be in vain.
Well, thank you so much, Ms. Leach.
And what I have a question I want to ask. Going back to the money when he was talking about that, Chief Graham, it's going to be a waste of tax money. Well, was it a waste of tax money when all these other kids was being killed and murdered? Was that a waste of the money again? And there's two other cases say they were solved.
I agree, ma'am.
Emmett?
Yes.
May I ask Louis Graham a question? I'm having difficulty hearing the other side of this conversation, but I'm interested in knowing what Louis thinks about the Clifford Jones case, because a former DeKalb lawman who's had his problems of his own was the sheriff in DeKalb County. He was also the chief investigator on the Jones case, and I think he and Louis were probably partners at one time and knew each other quite well. And at one time, about 3 or 4 years ago, he offered to reopen the Clifford Jones case for Clifford's younger brother, who I took to meet him. And about 3 weeks later, he called me back and said that the individual he was going to arrest in that case had died in the penitentiary. I'm just wondering what Louis thinks about that case.
Well, Sidney and I were partners, and as a matter of fact, we're best of friends. And I'm also aware of Sidney's feelings, not only about Clifford Jones cases, but the Clifford Jones case, but the remainder of the cases also. And I don't know. I know that he was pushing to have that case reopened, and I don't know of any. I don't have any information about the suspects that he had, but he was very strong on one suspect, and but that's about all I know about that.
And that suspect, I understand, was killed or died?
He died of AIDS, I believe.
Yeah, okay. died of complications from AIDS. The thing that's significant, Emmett, and for your listeners too, about Clifford Jones's case is that of the 29 cases that the authorities actually put on their official list of cases, and of course Chet and I found many, many more cases that could have gone on that list using their parameters. But anyway, of the 29 that we've looked at over 25 years, that Chet and I have looked at it over 25 years, it's the only one where the authorities actually had statements made to them, this is made to the police and the FBI, by people who were eyewitnesses to either the molestation and strangulation of Clifford Jones or the disposal of his body not long thereafter. And the person that they identified as responsible for this crime was not Wayne Williams. Wayne Williams' name doesn't even appear in the 400-page file on Clifford Jones.
And how was Clifford Jones?
After the trial of Wayne Williams, there were 22 more cases that were closed, and one of those 22 was the case of
Clifford Jones. Got it.
Interestingly enough, Clifford also was one of the few, I think there were 7 or 9, I forget which, who actually had the, quote, unusual fiber on him. Now, if that's true... Okay,
now wait a minute.
What's that say about the rest of the fiber case?
Okay, bring our audience up to date about the fiber. And then I want us to focus on the significance of the list and how it was used and why it deserved to be the title of your book.
Well, bring them up to date on the fiber might take more than one day, but...
well, let's do this in 30 words or less.
Okay, 30 words or less. The fiber case doesn't hold up because, number one, fiber is transfer evidence. And they only found one side of that transfer. There was only one fiber, and that was a red cotton fiber, which could have come from Kmart or Walmart or anyplace else, that might have come from the shorts or, quote, swimming trunks, close quote, of one of the victims that was found in Wayne Williams or his father or mother or aunt's environment.
Oh, okay, wait a minute. Chet, you're saying... One as in O-N-E?
No, one fiber. Not one group, one fiber.
One fiber sent this man to prison?
No. What I said was that there was only one fiber from a victim found in the environment of the accused killer.
Okay.
All of the fibers that were found came from the Williams side of the equation.
Okay.
Most of those fibers were very common fibers. They were fibers you could find anywhere. There was only one of them which was in any way unusual, and that's a fiber that matched a fiber in the Williams rug.
And there was also...
The problem with all that is that when you know that one of the victims was killed in a laundromat, a place where they have
all kinds of fibers
designed to catch all these fibers. That brings all these fibers together, and the testimony of the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, quote, expert, close quote, was that the Williams' environment was the only one that could have furnished all of these very, very common fibers.
Right, okay. Got it.
Emmett, if I could jump in here, too, on a point that you've
Go right ahead, Jeff.
discussed with Chief Graham, too. Of course, as you know, the prosecution, they argued during the trial that one of the reasons they thought Wayne Williams was culpable in these cases was that the murders stopped. But nobody ever bothered to ask which murders stopped.
That's right.
If you're talking about murders of young African-American people in metro Atlanta, murders like that never stop. And what happened was that the list stopped. The police stopped counting, and the press, went ahead and stopped reporting these cases. And I think it's fascinating that we have in our midst Catherine Leach, who could probably be Exhibit A in this scenario, because she could tell anybody that the murders did not stop, because Catherine, and please feel free to jump in, Catherine, she suffered a terrible double blow with this whole thing. She not only lost her son Curtis Walker in March of 1981, she lost her brother Stanley Murray, who was 21 years old, in July of 81, just 4 months later, and that was about a month after Wayne Williams was arrested. So these murders did not stop. It turned out that Stanley lived in the same apartment unit with Catherine and Curtis. Do I have that pretty much in sync there, Catherine? Catherine, are you still with us?
Catherine, are you still on the line?
Yes.
Did I have that right, Catherine?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that raises all kinds of questions, as well as no mention of a pubic hair from a Caucasian that was found on the body. That was never mentioned at Wayne Williams' trial at all either.
Well, that happened in several cases, I believe. I know there was a Caucasian pubic hair found on Clifford Jones's body. Of course, what the state shrewdly did is they made sure that the jury would not hear about Clifford Jones, the boy who was strangled inside that laundromat. They made sure that his case was not going to be one of the 10 additional cases that they presented into evidence against Wayne Williams. However, when after the trial, the authorities closed those 10 cases, charged them off to Wayne Williams, and added 12 more. And among those 12 was this boy, Clifford Jones, in the laundromat.
You know, Jeff, one thing that keeps escaping everyone is that at that trial there were not 10 pattern cases admitted and 2 tried cases. There were 12 pattern cases admitted and 2 tried cases. But even the judge to this day doesn't realize that.
And also, we're going to be winding up, gentlemen, so I'd like to give Catherine an opportunity to say a few words, and then I'd like to let you and Jeff wind it up and give Chief Graham our thanks and our best wishes for a successful investigation. So, Catherine, is there something that you'd like to share with our audience? There are people listening to you all over the world.
Well, what I would like to say to your audience that y'all keep me in y'all prayers, and that I will still stand strong. I'm a strong woman, and I'm going to continue to stand strong until these cases have been solved. And I want Chief Graham to know that I got his back.
All right, Chief Graham, you're next.
Well, you know, as we speak here today, there's still a lot of theories abound. There's just many theories. I want people to know that I'm investigating the facts. If the theory turns into fact, we're going to investigate it. But I will say, and this is all I want to say about this, I'm encouraged from the day we opened these cases to where we are right now. I'm very encouraged, and that's where I'll leave that.
Thank you very much, Chief Graham.
Okay.
Jeff?
Well, I just want to thank you, Emmett, for having all of us on the air here, because I think it provides not just perspectives from Chet and me, but certainly from one of the parents, Catherine Leach, who... Well,
it couldn't have happened. It couldn't have happened without your cooperation and Chet.
Well, thank you, and I think it's best to have that perspective from certainly the families of the victims, and also to have Chief Graham come on and because I know that an awful lot of people are pulling for him and his staff there to come up with some fresh information.
Thank
you very much, Jeff. Chet, you're last.
Well, Emmett, there's so many things that are wrong with this case that we didn't even touch on today. It's amazing. But I have read all those files that detectives reading. And one thing I can assure you is that they're going to be pleased to know that Wayne Williams' name doesn't appear in any of them.
Chet, I want to thank you very much for cooperating and making yourself available. I know you were in demand and were very busy today, and you made time to join us. I appreciate it very much. And we will do this again on July 5th. So we're going to revisit this, and I appreciate, again, very much. All right?
Thank you, Emmett.
Thank you very much. In my opening remarks, I said that this is an important story that won't, and I might add, shouldn't go away. Now we all know why. On the Real Side, we'll send a written invitation to the former Public Safety Commissioner of Atlanta, our former Chief of Police and Mayor, the Honorable Lee Brown, inviting him to join us for Part 2 of Getting Away with Murder. That'll be on July 5th. Write that date and time down. Do it now, and tell a friend to meet you here for the continuation of this historical conversation, June 5th, at the noon hour, for On the Real Side, Part 2, Getting Away with Murder. Thanks to all my guests and to Brian Jackson, the management and staff, and the listeners, sponsors of KPFT.